morning. Well, that's the name of a new groundbreaking documentary that features my special guest today on Reid Between the Lines. It is the one and only cultural enthusiast and expert who is really making big strides in taking Junkanoo to the world. And she is Angelique McKay. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you here. Now, you're doing so many different things, and you're actually living the dream of what many leaders want Bahamians to do with Junkanoo. That's to make your living out of Junkanoo. But for people who, on a rare occasion, might not know who you are, tell us who Angelique McKay is and all of the things you're involved in right now.
Well, I am Angelique McKay. I'm a member. I rush in Junkanoo 2 mornings, Boxing Day and New Year's. Let's just get that out there. I'm called here in the Bahamas. I'm called the Junkanoo Goddess. I was given that name by a radio personality based on the number of things that I do in Junkanoo, and I embrace that name that she's given me. I would say that I've been doing Junkanoo since I've been in Junkanoo because my father, Freddie McKay, who is one of the founders of the Saxon Superstars and one of the best bellas to ever be in their line. I grew up in a Junkanoo home, but I wasn't allowed to rush and participate in Junkanoo till I was older. You know, women weren't really allowed, and my mother wasn't going to allow me to go into a shack and go
With a
on
bunch of men.
before I was a certain age.
Yeah.
So I was around Junkanoo, but I didn't actively participate in Junkanoo until I was older. So that Junkanoo bug was always there. And I don't know how, but I always felt like the world needed to know what Junkanoo was. The world needed to understand that Junkanoo was or is, in fact, the greatest show on earth. You know, whenever I walk around, I tell people I am Junkanoo. I can't imagine my life without Junkanoo. For me, Junkanoo is 365 days a year, and on those leap years, you know, I get that extra bit of Junkanoo. So my passion and love for Junkanoo, with wanting the world to know that Junkanoo exists and the beauty and the pull of Junkanoo, I created an organization called the Junkanoo Commandos. And that organization was created with members of the Valley Boys, Saxons, Roots, One Family, and Genesis. Persons that are like-minded, who bought into the vision that I had of taking Junkanoo around the world.
Good, great. So you're saying still the big groups still haven't really bought into that vision entirely?
Well, with the creation of that particular organization, we're almost 17 years old. So it was an invitation only. So it would have been persons who I knew and who I knew had a particular vision and passion and love for Junkanoo that I spoke to. And they agreed and they came on board. So that's how it started with something like that. So many persons see what it is that we do as Junkanoo Commandos, and I've offered my help to help anybody be able to export Junkanoo on the level that the Junkanoo Commandos have been doing it over the years. They don't need to buck their toe where we would have, because sometimes when I look back and I was like, oh my God, this is how we did it. And we've improved on everything that we did in the beginning.
Well, tell us all of what you do, because you have international tours. And tell us also some of the challenges you had getting started.
Well, under the umbrella, most of my international projects related to Junkanoo. In fact, all of them have been under the umbrella of the Junkanoo Commandos. And we know we've made so many inroads and exposing Junkanoo to the world. We are the recipients of a CACIC award from the Ministry of Tourism based on what we've done. We've performed at Nice Carnival in the south of France,
wow,
which is the 3rd largest carnival in Europe. And we did Junkanoo on that stage. We've done Scotland, we've done London, we've done Liverpool, we've done Hastings, we've done Henley. We've done so many places in the United Kingdom. We've visited and done presentations in Italy as well. It's just so many places, so many places in the United States as well. We've done artist in residency programs where we have weeks where we teach artists the creative arts of Junkanoo. So we do cardboard manipulation as well as Junkanoo music and Junkanoo dance to persons who are in vibrant carnival communities throughout the United Kingdom. We've also had artist in residency programs here in the Bahamas where persons flew in and paid to participate in our artist in residency program.
Well, you know, that's one of the first things, because I could think that funding must have been a challenge in the beginning.
Still is.
And how did you overcome that?
Well,
Because I'm sure that's what a lot of people say, boy, we like to do it, but...
funding is still a major issue for us. And it's the same cry globally for persons in the arts. I used to think that the cry for funding was exclusive to us here in the Bahamas and us as Junkanoos.
No, but yeah,
it's
generally,
across the board
the arts
within
are
the
ignored,
orange
yeah.
economy globally. We do fundraisers as an organization in order to get funds to execute the projects that we put on the table. We partner with different festivals globally. Sometimes they're able to pay everything that's associated with our travel. Sometimes they're able to pay a portion based on the grants that they would have received. Some of the festivals are able to pay for a portion of our plane ticket and everything once we get there. Some are not able to pay for anything towards the plane ticket because of the restriction associated with the grant that they would receive. So this is where we subsidize and partner. And we do this so that we can expose Junkanoo globally. Our commandos, whenever they travel and they perform, they are paid. It's not oh, we need to go on this, so let's just do it
Yeah,
for
it's
doing
unprofessional.
its sake. Yes, they're paid. They receive their per diems. If for any chance that they're not able to, we're not able to cover the performance fees associated with everyone, we cut the number down. Because it was something that we did in our early stages when we wanted to expose Junkanoo. We would bite the bullet and say, okay, we don't need to be paid for this. We just need that exposure. We are past that stage of exposure now as Junkanoo Commando.
How large are your teams, your contingents when you travel?
It's based on the budget. It's based on the budget. And if it's strictly for music, it has to be a particular number, a minimum of 10, so that you could get that authentic Junkanoo sound. With costuming, it's different. We could carry a smaller contingent based on, but it's purely based on the budget that determines the size of the contingent that is able to move.
And of course,
money makes the world go round.
it sure does. You can't get away from that reality. And of course, the reaction is always outstanding, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Like, there's something, we get excited for Junkanoo as Bahamians.
Yeah.
And it's tenfold when other persons see Junkanoo and we line up. I could remember when we performed as the headliners for the World Art Celebration Festival in Newport News, Virginia. I had to get on the handset and call one of the event organizers for the police to come and remove the crowd from the commandos, and they were just getting dressed. They did not even start to perform yet because the vibrancy of the colors and the size of the costumes, the crowd just gravitated towards the area where they were getting ready to perform. So we get that reaction no matter where we go, no matter how small or large our numbers are, the crowd just gravitates towards. It's like the Pied Piper around the world. They just flock to us.
So would you say that this is probably the biggest and most important time in Junkanoo history, and definitely in recent history, with all of the things that are happening? Let's start off with the UNESCO situation.
Julian,
UNESCO
I can
branding.
tell you, I say this all the time, that our ancestors are walking now stronger than ever. Because there are just so many things that are happening right now for Junkanoo. We've been fighting as an organization for so long to get the word Junkanoo out there. And now it seems like it's just rolling off, and everywhere is just Junkanoo, Junkanoo, Junkanoo. You're just hearing it everywhere. The UNESCO inscription for Junkanoo to be the intangible cultural heritage of the Bahamas, my heart is still beating fast with that realization, because so many people who would not have even heard the word Junkanoo are now hearing the word.
And the thing is, we have to point out the word Junkanoo, it exists in different places.
It does.
But it is not like ours.
It's
There's
not.
a Junkanoo in Jamaica, but it's nothing like what
It's
we do
not.
in the Bahamas. I think there's some other islands too that have.
There
But-
are quite a number
Yeah.
of places that practice.
And clarify something for me, because I think I found out at one point that Japan was trying to actually adopt the word Junkanoo and use it as a special expression of culture for them. You
Wow.
familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
I know, with this
but, you know,
UNESCO thing would kill all of that.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like I defend Junkanoo so much, because if I hear a random person say, "Oh, I don't like Junkanoo," I engage them, because I need to know why don't you like Junkanoo? What has Junkanoo done to you? Because you have some people who say that. So I feel like I need to know.
Well, how could you not? I mean, for me, the most fascinating, of course, the costumes and the dancing and all of it, all of Junkanoo is really exciting. But for me, it's like, if you, and you know, Virginia Street, I have a lot of my family history is through there. So if you walk in from Virginia Street midnight and you start to hear those drums, and the more resounding they become as you get closer and closer and closer, I'm like, even if you're dead, you got to get up and.
Junkanoo. And my shack is through Virginia Street.
Oh, yeah?
The cave.
I know the
my
one, yeah.
shack is through there. So that's the route that I take to walk to Bay Street.
Yeah,
and it's
you got to be
nothing
alive.
like walking to Bay Street with your costume, even if you just have on your undergarments, or if you have on your costume, it's a feeling. The spirit of Junkanoo just lures you to Bay Street. It's like nothing else on the planet to me. You know.
But let's talk about this film, Who in the Morning. How did it come about?
Well, the story surrounding that, the directors, Phil Williamson is a Bahamian from Crooked Island, who is a producer on MSNBC in New York. And his partner is Jonathan, and he is from New Orleans. Their company is called the Colored Section. So they do film on people of color, African descent. And the film that they did right before this is Big Chief Black Hawk, the story of the Mardi Gras Indians. So then that was from New Orleans. So PJ Phillip wanted to do one on Junkanoo. So he started doing stuff right after COVID. And the persons who we were contacting for it, they just started to not return his calls. They started to not return his calls. And he put a clip in his family group. And one of his cousins is a former colleague of mine. And she looked at it and she was like, how could you be doing a film on Junkanoo and not have Angelique in it, right? So he's like, oh, I don't know her, right? So she gave him my number. He reached out to me and I was like, if you're not interested in doing the real story of Junkanoo, don't call me back. And I meant that. Because I didn't want a watered down version. I want people to understand what we go through as Junkanoos to get to Bay Street. The sacrifices, everything.
And tell us about that, because obviously family time is sacrifice.
Yeah.
Personal time is sacrifice. Finances are sacrifice.
Everything. So PJ and I would have linked, and it's for me, it was spiritual. He was guided to me by our ancestors because my name never appeared on his radar. My group never appeared on his radar. But for me, for the other persons to all of a sudden just stop responding, and then you're directed to me, this is what was meant to be, you know. So they're able to capture and speak with members of the Genesis Warhawks about the sacrifices that we make, about the preparations that we do. They follow me to get my face painted because my face is always
Well,
a part of my costume.
what's the first step? Let's start the first step.
The first
for
step
you,
for
right?
me, the
Yeah.
first
When
step
you,
for me is knowing what the theme is for the group. Because I conceptualize the costume that I'm going to be on Bay Street. Sometimes someone on the design team does a costume and they're like, this would look good on you. So I have to agree that, okay, I like that. I'll go with it because I like to design what I want to wear based on the theme that we
Yeah.
have. So that's the first thing, the design, right? So we go with that. So they were able to meet with the person who builds my costume. They also followed the person. In 2020, I decided that I would retire from pasting. That didn't happen, but I tried. So they would meet the person that I would do, who would do the contract pasting for my costume, and he's in a different group from I am. So they would have visited that shop. They went with me to purchase decorations for my costume. They visited me at my office to be like, well, what do you do when you get off work? I'm like, I gotta go to the shop. That's what you do, you know? And they were able to get that inside feeling that for us as Junkanoo, after 2 years being locked down and not participating in Junkanoo, the sense of euphoria to go to Bay Street, also the fatigue associated with it, because we weren't in a position to condition ourselves like we usually do, because we got the okay late in the year that we would be able to do Junkanoo. So we weren't going to Junkanoo practices or anything conditioning our bodies. So we felt that. The closer we got, we felt that. You know?
tell me something. And I've been to, as a reporter, been to shacks, really not in any real depth. Now you might make me change my mind for this year.
You must.
But what happens when things get a little crazy? Because I know there's got to be some tensions. There's got to be some
Yes,
conflict
yes.
sometimes. How do you deal with that?
Temperatures rise, right? But as Junkanoos, we respect each other and we know what we put into our costumes and we know how much pride we take in those costumes. So we're able to protect our space with our costume. Because if somebody hits your costume, you're ready to just lose it, because of what you would have put in that. But as a Junkanoo person in the shop, we are cognizant of other person's costumes. So if we were to hit your costume, it really is an accident. We look out if somebody comes in there with a drink, we'd be like, where you going with that? Because liquid and Junkanoo is like a disaster and accidents happen, and the amount of hours that we have to invest in pacing our
Gone.
costumes, it ain't no way. Like one of the lines people say, like, to frighten you would be like, I'll wet your costume, and be like, oh no, you know.
So back to the filming now. How long did the whole process take, the filming?
Well, I know they were doing B-roll during the summer, but it was like 2 weeks of following, and so they did Boxing Day and the New Year's Day parade and during the shack time. And when I saw the movie, I was like, this needs to be longer than that. You cut this, you cut that, but it's like certain things, you have to remove, certain things you leave, but you got a good understanding of Junkanoo. It also has elements of our time in Ghana. And it also has Christopher Davis, Nana Jankwa II.
Before you get into all that, I do want to sort of remind people that really you have been really linking as part with Mr. Davis and crew with the African diaspora, specifically Ghana. And you've told me you've been there 8 times? And what was it like the first time you went? I remember the first time I went to Africa, East and West. I've been to Kenya several times and also to Senegal. Went to Gorée where the slaves were taken out, and that was an extremely emotional period. What was it like the first time you went to Ghana?
The first time that I went, and I don't get tired saying this story, I walked into my destiny when I walked off of that plane in Ghana. Not one day in Ghana, from day one, have I felt like I was in another country, in a strange land, somewhere foreign. Everything felt like home. There was never 1 minute where I felt like I was doing something that I should not be doing. Everything just connected so naturally. And the way I say, and I feel like I walked into my destiny, all of the work that I have been doing in the past, in the cultural arena, has been preparing me for what I do now in Ghana and with Junkanoo. So I've been doing all of the heavy lifting. So now the execution, the real execution of everything that I've been learning, all of the toes that I've been bucking, all of the muscles I've been creating based on the rejection or the redirection of certain things, have been preparing me for now. So I've walked into my destiny the first day I stepped in Ghana.
And tell us the similar. Obviously, there's some obvious ones, but tell us the ones that we would be surprised of.
Well, the two of the biggest surprises for me, as a Junkanoo person and as someone that travels around the world doing Junkanoo music workshops as well, we always have to ask if your country has cowbells. We have been all over the world. Never have we been able to see cowbells. So we would always get cowbells made and carry them with us for our workshops. In Ghana, at our initiation ceremony, there was this gentleman ringing cowbells the same way we ring cowbells, with the same shape of our cowbells, and my eyes went like this. And I was like, oh, he's ringing cowbells. Like, I had to take pictures with him like a real tourist because it was unbelievable. And the second thing was, we had necklaces made of surasi.
Whoa.
And I was like, what? And for them, surasi is the most magical herb in the Ahanta region. And I don't know about the wider Ghana, but they use it for everything.
And as you
just
mentioned
like
the
us.
Ahanta region, and that is specifically where this connection between the Bahamas
Yes,
and Ghana
yes.
lies, huh?
And I would say the first trip I went with Sankofa Flamingo team, which is headed by Christopher Davis, who is the person behind all of this research.
Right, he's been
right?
doing
I mean,
phenomenal work.
it's just amazing. And his research led him to Ghana, and then to West Ghana, and then to the Ahanta region, and then to Princesstown, Pawcasoo. That is where he found the namesake of Junkanoo, who is Jan Kwao, who is a great Ahanta warrior, right? And his name resonates throughout the diaspora. And everywhere where captured and stolen Ahantas were brought. So they they praise his name and they sing his name, and that's why these celebrations are throughout the diaspora. So everywhere where you see Junkanoo celebrated or mentioned, that would have been somewhere where captured Ahantas would have been left behind. And his research showed us that the first 3 slave ships of captured Africans to the Bahamas came from the Ahanta region of Western Ghana. Yeah.
You can't get much more stronger than that.
I know, right? And it's just amazing what has happened. And as a result of that, the Bahamas has signed a sister city agreement between the Ahanta region and the Bahamas based on the historic links. First time ever.
Now let's go to their cultural celebrations and festivals. Obviously, cowbells,
Yeah.
drums without a doubt. What other similarities are there that you can see, the vestiges of
With
that
the
are
celebration?
that are in the
I
Bahamas?
know, growing up, they told us how the Junkanoos used to go to different houses. This is something that they still do with their Kundum festival. So the different groups dress and they go to the different houses. You get some monetary tokens to the group leader, and then they meet in the center of town and they just dance. I participated in the Kundum festival last October. I think it was year before. I can't remember. One of the October, I participated in the Kundum festival. And as a Junkanoo person, like, I never get tired on Bay Street. And I got tired. they perform for hours at a time, and
Wow.
you participate and you go around in a circle. You know, when you get tired, you go in the middle. You know, it's like, I gotta go in the middle. You know.
What are the costumes like? What are they made of?
Well, my particular costume, I had some shells on my legs to make noise and move. So it was a skirt with bells on the skirt and a belt. So it wasn't like, it was just that part that made it different. And then they have stuff in our hands that you would be able to move around. But it's really the dancing. And for me, it was amazing. The drummers, I mean, 5 and 6 hours non-stop. The tempo would change, which means your dance would change to match the tempo, but the drummers went non-stop. I was like, wow.
That's awesome. That is truly awesome. Now back to the film. Okay, so you finish shooting. Post-production time.
Well, they were able to complete everything in maybe 4 months, I'm thinking.
It's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. And for me to be able to see it while it's being put together so that I could say, well, we need to include this, this doesn't line up
Great.
here.
So, I mean, and I know, knowing you, that you would be living up to the role of co-producer. So, but you were actually in the editing suites with them.
Well, I wasn't there physically.
No, but it was
Yeah,
by
but
Zoom.
yeah. You know, and what made me so happy was that they really relied and accepted the things that I said in order to bring this film to life. The fact that they followed me was like, oh, okay, you know. But to be able to let people really see inside the belly of the beast that we call Junkanoo, it every day just knowing that this film is out there makes me so happy, you know, and it allows persons to understand what we do as Bahamians when it comes to Junkanoo, and how deeply ingrained in our bone marrow Junkanoo is.
It is really. Let me just ask you out of, and this probably, you don't probably need to do this since you, I'm sure you know that your heart, your spirit comes from
I
Ghana.
know where you're going.
But DNA sort of analysis is so prevalent these days. And actually, I'm thinking about doing it to find out where in Africa my lineage is. But what do you think about the DNA?
I'm not going to do it.
No?
I've been asked several times, and I said, I don't need a DNA test to know that I'm a hunter. My blood memory, when I landed, when I was in the Ahanta region, the way that I felt told me that I'm a hunter. It's the same feeling that I get when I land in Cat Island. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a Cat Island girl, and my love and passion for Cat Island. And for me to have that same feeling in the Ahanta region of Western Ghana that I have in Cat Island, that's all the DNA tests that I need.
And beyond being black, did you see yourself coming and going?
Oh, we saw so many people. The first person who caused my mouth to drop open was one of the chiefs that looks like my granduncle, Harold King. The only difference is he's a little bit shorter than what Uncle Harold was.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And when I took his picture and I sent it to my family group with my cousins, they could not believe it.
Amazing. Angelique, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be back with more on the program. Stay with us. We're talking to Angelique McKay.